Technology is so slow lately. I don't know what's going on. It's like everything
Yeah,
is
I've noticed everything seems to slow down here as well.
it's so sluggish today. So anyway, yeah. All kinds of craziness went down last night. I'll tell the guys about this in a minute. But yeah, it happened during a clearing because we had an emergency booking that came through. So we went and checked it out, and it was because of a whole bunch of level 3s that came through a portal in a small town. In fact, it was an infestation. I don't know if it was CERN or what, but it opened a massive portal in the middle of this town. And all of these entities started coming through it. And that was attached to the couple that I cleared.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll tell you guys about it more in a second. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Andy and I were just chit-chatting. I didn't even realize what time it was. Sorry, we're late. Just chatting about it.
We're talking about behind the scenes. That's my fish t-shirt. It says out of office. I don't know if you can see it.
You're definitely on summer vacation.
Yeah, it's my out of office t-shirt.
Nice. Gotta love it.
I thought I'd be more kind of, normal, really. Is there normal? There's no real such thing as normal.
There's nothing normal about you, Andy.
No, I try not to be. Nobody wants to be normal, do they?
Yeah, exactly. Good morning, friends. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us. I was just telling Andy about a crazy case that I had last night, and I'm planning on asking Chen about this because one of my clients booked an emergency clearing for herself. She's been fighting with her husband a little bit, and so she wanted to see what was going on. And sure enough, we found entities crawling all over the place. And I asked, they said this is not normal, the influx of them. They were those hybrids, the level 2 and level 3 hybrids. So it's like they're like half demon, half ET. I'm telling you, Andy, this was like a scene out of the Avengers movie last night. I'm not even kidding.
Fabulous. I've never seen that.
So and there's in the scene in the movie, there's like this giant portal that opens over New York City, and all of these entities start coming through this massive portal. That is what we saw last night doing the clearing.
Right.
It's a small town in Texas. I don't want to say what town it was, but there was an influx of entities just flying through this portal. It was over the town, like in the sky, and these huge. They were tall and skinny and black with red eyes and big black wings, and they were attacking everybody they could get their hands on.
Wow.
And you can't see any of these beings. You can't see them, but they can wreak destruction. I mean, they can cause all kinds of chaos.
I think this is the thing, Laura, as well, from my perspective. Obviously, this whole SRT thing's growing so quickly. And I think this is why, because obviously there are these portals being opened, and we know there's more negativity coming in. And I think this is this massive push to get people certified, trained, and start to clear up, really. Because it's really, I was talking to you offline behind the scenes, but I was just saying that last night, Jane and I woke up about 1 a.m. in the morning, and effectively there was this sort of loud buzzing sound with like a beeping. So it was a really weird sound right outside the bedroom window. And of course, Jane said, I think, there's something nefarious above the house. And of course, I laughed and just said, no, I think it's a plane going over, because I kind of figured the same as her. But I wasn't going to say that because obviously we have enough problems as it is, really. So I thought I want some sleep. So I just say, no, it's a plane. But in the morning, she woke up and said, did you actually hear the sounds? I was like, yeah, I did hear the sounds. It wasn't a helicopter. It wasn't a plane. So I don't quite know what it was. But it's interesting that you said that about that last night.
That happened at the same time. That's when we did the clearing.
Yeah, right.
It was around 1 a.m. your time.
Yeah.
And like I was told, they had to bring in the whole team for it. That's how big the infestation was.
Yeah, right, okay. Because this is the thing, isn't it? And this is what we're seeing with, with CERN and some of these other, kind of spiritual tools, I guess, that are kind of being used to open portals and gateways and things. Then they're not bringing positive things in, they're trying to bring in negative things. And, we're seeing more and more people that hear voices, more and more people that have intrusive thoughts. And, this whole thing seems to be kind of cascading like a snowball effect quite quickly, really.
You ain't kidding. I had a reptilian in my basement last night.
On a leash. You kind of feed it, Laura, do you?
A snake sitting on top of my dryer.
Just feed it like a couple of dead rats or something.
I was wondering. I couldn't tell. It looked like a timber rattlesnake. So I did have a mild panic attack. And then I found out it was just a rat snake. And I'm like, oh, okay, it doesn't have a rattle. And I just picked it up and moved it. So I'm pretty good at handling reptiles, though. I was impressed with myself.
Well, you're getting quite a lot of practice, to be fair.
Indeed, I am. Yeah. No fear.
No, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think as we kind of move into that space emotionally and kind of mentally of no fear as much as we can be, then, the whole world kind of does change around you effectively, because the things that make other people fearful don't make you fearful, and therefore you can walk a different path, which is kind of what we're all here to do.
Yeah. I've always called it kind of dumb because I'm always never been scared of shit. So my parents have always thought, like, God, she's got a death wish. Like, no. I'm just tempered. It's something different.
Well, I think this is the thing, isn't it? I know, like, John and I talked about it a lot of times. I've probably mentioned it on here before, but we're pretty sure that we've all kind of been working for the dark side in past lives, which is why we're here to clear up this time, and obviously to kind of repay some karma, which is why we don't have fear of the dark side, because the more difficult cases we get, the more John and I generally kind of rub our hands together and quite look forward to it. So we do have some sort of disconnection around what we're walking into, or there is no fear because you were darkness in a past life, and therefore you've kind of been there and done that.
Clarify, there is no fear, but there is caution.
Caution. We're not
caution, definitely. Like last night when I checked, there was a guy that was in my comments section actively recruiting reptilian soul guides for people. And thank you to whoever it was. I forget who it was that sent me a message and sent me screenshots from this. I was like, wait, what? And sure enough, he was sharing a website where I didn't realize. I didn't click on his website and read through what he was mentioning in the comments. And it turns out that he was trying to connect people with reptilian soul guides. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to check this guy out in the Astral. So when I sat down with one of the mediums yesterday, I did a scan on him. He had imposter soul guides and a big black dragon with him that was guarding him. And the soul guide's like, do you want me to engage? I'm like, nope.
You are learning, Laura. It's taken 6 months.
He's like, are you sure? I've got my sword. I'm like, nope, leave it alone.
Yeah, right.
Leave it be.
Well, that's quite good.
Just peeking.
6 months ago, you'd have rushed in there and then come out with lots of pieces of you holding up sort of tail, legs,
I've learned.
That's how we do learn, isn't it, to be fair?
Yeah, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But it does show that, there are bigger beasties out there. I think of it kind of like levels and bosses. Like I play a lot of video games. So if you think about it like video game bosses, every once in a while you'll be like level 5 and you'll come across a level 20 and you're like, nope, not ready for that. See you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me last night. So
that's progress, Laura. We'll put that down on the list. Laura's making progress.
I've been making some incredible progress with my mediumship. In fact, it's funny. The soul guides, when I'm working with them, I've noticed they actually pause now to see if what I'm picking up first. And then they'll tell me what I see. And a lot of times they're like, how did you know? I was like, I don't know. Just happened to know somehow. So I think that working with SRT, even just being a facilitator, is definitely activating our mediumship abilities at a very fast pace.
I think this is what Chen said, didn't he, on that other chat we had? That facilitators will be mediums because you're in the energy, and obviously you're engaging and activating telepathy, basically, because of what you're doing. Therefore, it won't take, I mean, you think about it again. I know it's a long time ago, but if you rewind, like for me, 20 years ago, for me to actually get to talk to Chen, that was probably 3 years of weekly groups, weekly meetings. So it was a very long, drawn-out process before there was any type of kind of positive improvement, I guess, really. Whereas we look at you guys, and I know Johnny was the same. Johnny spent years and years and years going to groups, and it was like the hard path to walk, really. But these days, everything's speeding up so fast that people that were not able to talk to guides are kind of doing that on some of the courses. Like I know with Michelle and Louise, they're coming up very fast compared to how it was 20 years ago. So it's not a big surprise that if you're a facilitator and you're working with a medium and you're doing this work obviously you're going to be picking up on the thoughts, the intuitive stuff, and that telepathic aspect is going to be activated quite quickly.
You are not kidding. I'm actually quite in shock myself as to what start downloads and things I get. And out in public as well, I've noticed I'm more sensitive to energy. This is one of the reasons why Chen was like, you're doing better on your protection. It's like, I have to. I feel the difference if I don't, because if you go out in public on a day where you don't do your protection and then you gauge it against the day that you have, going out into crowds, you feel a lot more tired. You feel a lot more agitated, a bit more rattled in a way. It's like you're absorbing energy from other people without realizing it all the time.
Yeah, I think you become hypersensitive. I mean, I find the same thing. If we go out into a crowded place with crowded people, I do my protection, obviously do it every day and talk to Chen and things, but you still feel that kind of that negative edge of other people kind of around the outside of you. And as you just said, you can feel a little bit irritated by people, and you listen to people's conversations and you think, people, and you kind of whisper to yourself, sheeple. And then you kind of catch yourself doing it and think, I shouldn't be doing that because that's not right.
No, because it's judgment. You don't want to do that.
No, so you kind of override that. I think, okay, this, that's where they need to be. But I think I prefer being on my own at home, in my own surroundings with Jane and just doing our own thing.
I think most starseeds do. We don't have any competing frequencies out there, trying to, because, they always talk about how the dominant frequency will affect the other frequencies around it. But if you're not the dominant frequency that day because somebody else is around you, they can actually lower your vibe. So it does help protect your vibe when you're not out around a whole lot of people.
Because it works both ways, doesn't it? If we've got high vibration, we walk into a space and there's a lot of low vibrating people, then they're going to come up slightly or we get pushed down. So, it's depending upon which way that happens.
Yep. You just blast them with sage bubbles.
Perfect. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
So talking of which, have you got your Ghostbusters costume ready?
No, that's yours. Remember, I gave it to you. I'm going to have to get another one. In fact, I'm going to upgrade mine. I don't want to have a cheap one this time. I'm going to have a fancy, legit Ghostbusters costume for the next event.
What, with SRA logos on?
Oh, yeah, the whole shebang. Yeah, we're going professional with this one.
Yeah. Hey, perhaps we should have an SRA uniform, actually, shouldn't we?
Yes, I think
that would be quite cool.
What would it look like to you if you could design an SRA uniform? What would it look like? That's
quite a good question, isn't it? Really, it'd probably be some like old Viking thing with a huge big sword, just a little kind of, a leather
sword down by the side,
leather thing around you, a bit of protection, shield, and maybe like a laser bolt or something on there. But it's a good question. I know what yours would be. Something very elaborate, obviously.
It's funny. Did you see the video I shared the other day about the haunted ambulance?
I didn't see that actually.
No. There were some paramedics that were driving down the road and something was messing with them in the back. And it got so spooked, they actually pulled over in an alley and jumped out of the ran off, and they were filming the back of the ambulance, and they saw this person moving in the light behind, the doors, and they screamed and ran away from their ambulance.
Right. That is funny, actually.
So spirits are everywhere these days, and I'm starting to think that people are noticing them more than they ever have before. This is something that Chen was saying, is that the dimensions are starting to kind of blend more than they used to. And so it's like you're kind of often on the cusp of two dimensions. So you may see things that are 3D and 4D and not even realize it.
Yeah,
especially personal stuff too.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think everything will start to blend together as well. And it's like time, actually. We were driving back, went to see Jane's mum yesterday, and that's like a 3-hour drive. So we were driving back, and we arrived home an hour before we should have. And when we got home, one of the clocks was an hour different to our watches. And of course, both started to laugh and said, well, we've basically lost an hour effectively.
So you've been abducted again, Andy.
Yeah. So that's why my back's itching, because I've got another chip or something. But this is that whole time thing, that time is starting to morph and change, and people are starting to notice that, and of course, when you're driving, it's kind of that monotonous, boring thing that you're on the motorway, and it is easy to kind of pass places you haven't noticed you've passed at all from a kind of conscious perspective.
Absolutely. I'm just reading in the comments. Everybody is talking about what they want to ask Chen in a minute. Anyway, everybody's getting it. I just want to plug the school though, because you got this class coming up. So while we have over 100 people watching, I figure I may as well promote the class. You guys are coming to America.
Well, did you see our little picture?
That was I loved that picture, by the way. That was really cracking me up. The two of you dressed like Prince Porter and Lord Webster.
No, that was Johnny's idea. So I think Johnny behind the scenes asked Ollie if he could come up with some mirror image of the Eddie Murphy Coming to America theme, which obviously he did very well at. So it was.
You're showing your age, Andy.
I know. I well remember the film.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people haven't seen that one.
That was in the 80s, wasn't it?
I was going to say, I think I was 5 years old when that movie came out.
Yeah, I bet you watched it though. But yeah, so the concept being that we're going to come to the States. Basically, we're looking at kind of dates around mid-October, I think somewhere around the 9th-ish, possibly. So basically, and obviously in the kind of Ithaca area is where we're sort of thinking about. So we're still trying to get some numbers together, but if we can tie that together, then obviously we're going to basically run in, teach lots and lots of people to clear nasty things and to kind of learn to protect themselves, and then we're going to run away again.
I've been told everybody was hoping you would come for an extra day so we can have an SRA meet and greet. So people that won't be able to.
Yeah, we probably can do that. Because we'll need a couple of days each side, obviously, to kind of acclimatize and stuff, really.
I know people from 4 or 5 states away that are willing to drive up just to spend a few hours with us.
Really? Not with us, with you mean?
Well, with us.
I've seen this before, Laura.
Andy and Christopher and Daniela. So that'll be great.
I saw this happen before at Olympia when people run towards you and they bypass me very quickly, and then you kind of lift them off the floor and stuff. So yeah, I think we know what the reality is.
I don't even know why, to be honest. I'm just a normal person, just like you. But I feel like people, it's like soul family. We are remembering each other from the past, and I think that's where a lot of the excitement comes in.
Yeah, it's true. And you're not normal, Laura, at all. Yeah. If I'm not normal, you're not normal. There is no normal.
That's true. I have to, it's funny, my friend invited me out to a party on Friday. She's like, you don't have to be normal, but you could try. I was like,
yeah. What does that mean? You have to sit there and say nothing?
I was like, what does that mean we're going to talk about? Like TV and stuff? Sports? And she's like...
Yeah, I know.
I'm not used to hanging out with normies anymore. I have to coach myself on what are the normies talking about these days?
I know, because we had the football on. England ended up in the final of the European Cup, basically, which was quite a big thing over here. But of course, I'm not into football at all. So, whilst everyone's talking about it, I'm trying to appear very moderately interested, but not at all particularly. And even Jane said, we're going to watch the football. I was like, well, why would we do that? It's like, they're not going to lose anyway, which they did.
Of course they did. It was Spain.
Yeah, it's like, why would I want to put myself through that torture? No, I think we'll sit in the garden and drink beer or something.
I think a lot of Brits had the same idea. They knew what was coming.
Yeah, it always happens, basically. I mean, it's been happening since I was like 5 or something. So,
although I must say, I bet the entities love football hooliganism.
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect. Well, a perfect place to create that type of thing, isn't it?
It is. Yes, indeed. So gotta love it. I'm just reading through some of the comments. Are you ready to go? Because people want to know. You guys want to know a lot about things that I'm going to try very hard to talk about delicately here, because I don't want to have my Facebook deleted like last time. It's the only reason I'm being cautious, because Facebook censorship is ridiculous, you guys know. So I'm not going to go too in depth today, but I will cover it. In fact, I know what you guys mostly want to talk about anyway. The comments were all the same, really.
Even I can guess what the comments are like.
Yes. They all want to know about November.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I'll hand you over to Chen.
Yay. Take off your watch. Don't forget.
Hey, look, I've done it already. It's the first thing he says. Take off the watch. You've got a good memory.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, I'll catch you in a while. Good day to you, my dear.
Hello, Chen. How are you?
I am marvelous, thank you. And how are you?
I am very excited to speak with you today. Always the highlight of my week.
Yes, and funny enough, my dear, you're the highlight of mine too.
Well, thank you for that, Chen. It's been a very exciting time down here recently.
Yes, we're watching with much interest.
Was that an invention we stopped last night? It sure felt like one.
There have been a number of occurrences of the same things, Ingress, really. So yes, you would have been part of a typical type of Ingress from the more negative aspect.
What was up with that? Was that something that was intentionally opened, or is that just one of the side effects of the shift, these portals opening?
It's all part of the event that happened with the president, really. All of these things have been tied together. So
really?
we're going to see a few more of these sorts of things more than likely start to happen over the next probably couple of weeks. So, everything in politics, my dear, and everything is a theatre show effectively. So, of course, it's the normal case that you light a fire in one corner, you point to the fire, everyone looks in that direction, and then we see sleight of hand happening behind the scenes.
Yes,
so, of course, this is obviously what tends to happen is that big events that are orchestrated to focus the attention are orchestrated, and that opportunity is never missed for the sleight of hand to take place behind the scenes.
So the event that happened last week here in my state, not to get too much into detail, but you know what I'm talking about, was that a part of the plan, or was their plan thwarted?
It was certainly a part of the plan by obviously the negative aspect. So I'm obviously going to be quite careful because I too don't really want your Facebook page to leak.
Do you think they got what they wanted, or do you think that they screwed it up a little bit?
Yes, it was an orchestrated event, but it was actually the reason it didn't happen was intervention, basically.
Interesting. Intervention from the light or the dark?
Intervention from the light. But you must remember, of course, again, nothing's as it seems. And this is, of course, one of the big problems for all of you that watch these events on a worldwide stage. So when you take presidential candidates, generally, if you remember, if we go back in the past, the way things always worked is the banking agenda funded both sides, so they always win, basically. Yes, they do. And the same thing tends to happen. So when you look at big countries like the United States of America, obviously it would be unwise to think that there's any type of independent choice happening. Everything is conceived. So again, all avenues are obviously watched. So when the cabal, the negative aspect, plays its hand, obviously it's been through all of the different outcomes that can happen, and each outcome has a certain percentage of eventuality, and then of course you make plans for each eventuality. So when something like that happened, and it was a programmed event from our perspective that was designed to obviously have
a certain result.
A certain result that was guaranteed from their perspective, because of course there were backup people in the vicinity. So if the initial person didn't achieve the optimum target, then there was another event that would have happened that would have basically created the same type of outcome. So these things
both of these events were stopped technically?
Yes, basically. So the second event hasn't been publicly announced from our perspective, but certainly there was spiritual intervention by the extraterrestrial aspect to stop that happening.
Oh,
because of course, if you look at both of the candidates you have, they're both controlled. They both one is better than the other, but they both obviously still have to connect into the geopolitical aspects of the finance system and the banking system and the big corporations. So regardless of which person in any election wins, ultimately they turn around when they take their seat, and then of course they have laid at their feet the system as it's been set up. And generally they don't have a huge amount of wiggle room to change things. This is why your politicians they make so many promises, and most of them make those promises with good heart and with integrity. And then, of course, they find out when they actually come into power that there's lots of things that can't change because they've been designed that way. And this is what you would find, or this is what we're expecting to see with the person that will win the election. So if he can live long enough, and this was the first of maybe 3 different attempts, most probably. So if he can actually make it long enough to actually win that election, then there will be the events that we orchestrated and talked about back in February. We would see them start to come into play for the November timeline.
I see. So they don't want that result, and so they will put more actions in place, or is this? I see. Okay, yeah,
Yes,
that resonates. Because we were aware that this event that we've been told about in November is planned by them. This is not something that was actually an intervention from the light, so to speak.
Yes, it's a negative event, intervention by the Kabbalistic aspect, basically. But this is designed, if you look at all of the things that are happening on the world stage, you're seeing the financial system starting to disintegrate. And obviously from the America perspective, obviously you're aware that you can't keep borrowing money without paying it back. You yourselves know that when you continue to borrow money, then eventually the banks put a hard stop on you. So that hard stop has already been reached and surpassed by a long, long way. So what you have now is you have other countries in the world that are basically starting to effectively change the finance system from behind the scenes. And this, of course, means it will take away the value of some of the Western currencies completely. And that, of course,
cash, I imagine.
Yes, basically. And of course, when that happens, then of course there has to be a monumental change in the system.
Yes, and when the system is being changed, it goes down generally.
Yes, of course, yes. And I'm sure you're starting to see, I would imagine most of you that are listening on this call are starting to hear of events that are happening in your localities. So ATMs that go offline, localized power outages. There's lots of things that are being set into place basically by that negative aspect, such that if their candidate doesn't win that election, then of course there will be repercussions. And these are the repercussions that we foresaw back in February timeline. And these were not the only things happening on a worldwide stage, but they were obviously the bigger things that are likely to affect most people. And this, my dear, was why I decided, against Andrew's best interest to a certain degree, to actually broadcast what we thought we were going to see, because it gave people lots of time to plan and prepare. And of course, if you have time to plan and prepare, then things are never as bad as they seem when they're sprung on you, if you like.
I just want to say thank you very, very much for that, Chen. We are extremely grateful for your insight into this. And to be honest, I would always prefer to have some warning rather than to be blindsided. So really, we are deeply grateful for that.
Yes, and we think from our perspective, from a spiritual group or organization behind the scenes, we want people to be empowered to know the things that are moving into place. So this is almost like a game of chess, and we watch the game of chess, and like every player of a game of chess, you have to anticipate 3 or 4 moves ahead. So sometimes we see moves ahead that don't happen, and that's good, because of course we can't be right all the time. But what we see is the percentage chance of things happening. And when we looked back in February, we foresaw some quite real events that were more than likely to happen. And we wanted to make sure that people at least had some ideas on what was going to happen and how it would affect them. So, because there is always the positive side, my dear. So we always do focus on the negative, unfortunately, because humans do tend to like negative things.
We got a lot of negative shit to sort out, Chen. We got a lot of work to do.
Yes, and we focus on the negative. I mean, we focus on the negative to remove it and rebalance it and bring it into a positive vibration. So that's part of my job. My job here is obviously connecting with and working with you and Andrew and other people like yourselves, basically, to highlight and shine a nice bright light into the darkest areas, so we can show everyone the darkest areas. And then, of course, we can clean them out and we can change the vibration. So our job and the group of entities that we work with behind the scenes is now enormous. There are huge numbers of us growing by the day that are here to bring in this change. And of course, the negative side knows this is happening. So effectively, there is a war happening behind the scenes. It's a spiritual war currently, and that will probably manifest into a physical war at some point for a duration.
Yes, indeed. And I had a question about this because there was something interesting we've noticed. Um, I'm going to get ahead to this question. Okay, there it is. There was a case with the demonic entity and how they were actually part of a sentinel Earth grid with the intention of keeping the area in a low vibrational density. Is this similar to how starseeds and other light beings have been spread out in a high frequency grid? Because
Yes,
we're noticing, yeah, they're being placed in a grid as well.
yes, I think we've covered this before, my dear. I've said that people like yourselves on the call will find that you live in the darkest of places because
Yes.
there's no point from our perspective in you being all together dancing around the fire, having a wonderful time, because that wouldn't change the vibration of the places that we need to clear and change. So we need to put each of you in a dark place that's not particularly accountable or acceptable for you to live in. And obviously, from a financial perspective, people that have financial issues and problems find themselves in the darker places, but you're there because you're holding the light and the vibration. And if you could see our perspective, one light person like yourselves on this call put into the darkest places, the change that you have on a daily basis, it is extraordinary. You will never understand it, my dear, until you join me on this side.
I'm not trying to rush for that just yet.
No, I'm hoping you'll keep going because, of course, people like yourselves are here to lead from the front.
Indeed. Can you please estimate a little bit on how far along we have been going through the 5D shift? Is there
Yes,
any? Yes.
I think we were around the 60%-ish mark last time we spoke, which was
Yes, I
probably,
believe we were.
yeah, so we're probably 5 or 6% onwards from there. So we have had regression, or we've seen regression, because, of course, we've had a lot of portals opened. There's a lot of negative vibration energy been brought in, and there's a lot of fear. So, of course, as the fear increases on the planet, the vibration drops. So this is like one of those elastic pieces. You remember the pieces of bubble gum or chewing gum, my dear, you used to have and used to put in your mouth and pull it, and you'd expand, and then it would contract. This is how this kind of ascension process is working from our perspective. As people meditate, as people bring in the light and we clear the darker energies, the vibration increases, which then obviously helps us along that path of ascension, being the word that you use. But of course, as the negative side plays its hand, it then contracts the energy, increases the fear, and brings it back again. So it's not a linear growth. It's not the way that you would expect things just to move forwards and forwards. So we could be at 65% today. Tomorrow we could be back at 60% if there was a negative event worldwide. And obviously the things that are happening in the Middle East are very negative, and that area is a very influential acupuncture point for Mother Earth. And this is why there's so much strife and turmoil in that particular place.
Makes a lot of sense. 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yes, but we move forward because that's what we do.
Yep, absolutely. Wow. Do you see any other positive changes, any news you can share with us today to give us a little bit of extra bounce in our step with all this going on?
Yes, there's a lot of positive change. So basically, if you think about the planet in the way that we think of it, we see the fauna, so we see the forestry, we see the plants, then we have obviously the oceans that are the biggest part of the planet, really. And then we have land masses with people on and animals, of course. So if you put to one side the fauna, so the forestry, that type of thing, and you put the animals to one side, because they just do what they do, they run their programs. But the human being is the intellectual aspect of the energy of planet Earth. So everything you're all thinking collectively is what changes the vibration and changes the planet. So of course, you as a collective have the biggest aspect of change. And what we're seeing is, since certain events happened, and I'm being quite careful, my dear, you make the signs, don't you, with your fingers? Mm-hmm. So certain things happened back in 2020, and obviously lots of people were actually woken up. So it was seen to be a very negative controlling event from the Cabal's aspect. But what they've done, of course, is they've woken people up that would otherwise still be asleep. And those people are starting to read things, they're starting to talk to friends, and information starting to cascade downwards, even into what you might call people that are still asleep, but they're starting to see and they're starting to think. And as they see and think, they start to change their vibration. And this is what we're seeing. So we're seeing the planet starting to light up in a way that it's never done for a long, long time. And this is extraordinarily positive from our perspective. because if you can bring a group of people together around the world in the same time frame, so if you, my dear, could run a meditation, let's say, and you can bring together, say, 500 people in different countries around the world that all connect energetically at the same time in a meditative state, so their brainwave state changes, the thought process changes, they move into the astral together, that is an extraordinary change that can actually change parts of the planet's vibration. And this is where we would be keen to start to encourage all of you to think about, those of you that are teachers, those of you that work in the healing arts, starting to do things in bigger groups will make the change faster. So you, my dear, might do something on your own, and of course young Andrew's doing something on his own with a few people, but if you could bring everyone together at the same time, even if it was only for 10 of your minutes, the actual vibratory change is enormous.
Challenge accepted. You know me, Chen. I love to do this stuff. You give me homework, I'm on it. Thank you.
This is why I tell you, my dear, because I know that's what you'll say. It's a bit naughty of me, really, of course.
I can tell. I love it. You know what I'm like. I'm very excited about these things.
Well, we're all part of the same team. This is the whole thing, isn't it? That we're doing our bit from behind the scenes, and of course we need to guide you, all of you, into the things that make the biggest changes from your perspective. And those things wouldn't be known by you because, of course, you can't see interdimensional energy.
Yes. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
We're getting there. Some of us can.
Yeah.
Is there any suggestions? Obviously, you know, there's going to be some people that are watching today that don't really know anything about November. So could you give just a couple suggestions for people?
Yeah, so if we said to you, you live on this planet, basically, and this planet has a weather system, and the weather system changes on a daily basis. And depending upon where you live, depends upon the influence the weather has on your particular lifestyle. So all of you, if you sat back and thought, well, if we live somewhere whereby the weather became more difficult to control, and we would see more variations of weather, then it wouldn't be too much of a reach to think that at some point you'd be having power problems, because the power grid obviously relies on a certain infrastructure being in place. And if we took away some parts of the infrastructure, the power grid in your local areas would go down, and therefore your electronic equipment would fail quite quickly, as would your fridges and freezers and all those sorts of things. So it would be quite a normal thing to think that everyone should have backups in terms of power, lighting, food. So it's a normal consideration. If you think about the way that natives live, they hunt animals. When they hunt big animals and they take them down, they obviously take them back to their tribe, and then they take apart those animals. But they always generally put something to the side, because they know that tomorrow there may be no animal they can find, or the day after there may be no animal, and they have to feed their families and their tribes. But most people in the Western countries have got used to the fact that you can go down to your shopping centres and to your shops and buy whatever you need every day. But of course, this isn't going to be sustainable longer term. So at some point there will be breaks in the supply chain, and you need to be thinking about how you would manage that from your own personal perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. How many weeks or months would you say we should have some extra stock for, just in case?
Yes, another interesting question. So we're predicting maybe 2 weeks of turbulence to start with. So let's say 2 weeks with no power to start with. So 2 weeks, you would obviously be able to eat from your fridges and freezers and such like for 3 or 4 days, most probably. And then, of course, you would also turn to your dried foods and those sorts of things. You'd have candles, etc. So for the first week, it could be quite good fun, almost like camping, my dear, whereby modern conveniences have been turned off. Obviously, we wouldn't see your smiley face on these screens because they would be turned off. But effectively, the first week, most people could be able to manage quite easily. But we would expect there to be at least another 1 or 2 weeks potentially of downtime before infrastructure gets fixed and replaced and things start to come back online. And then, of course, those things that come online will take time, because, of course, if a supply line has been changed or there have been breaks in supply lines, then things take time to come back. So if you're on medications, you would be obviously well worth thinking about having extra medications in the house. extra water, extra food, just simple things. We're not talking about you becoming some underground bunker prepper, my dear. We're talking about very simple things that most people on the planet would expect to have, because people have, if you look at places like Mexico, there's power outages every day in Mexico, but people know when they're going to be, and people live around them. So lots of countries have power interruptions, and they live around those power interruptions quite happily. But of course, people in the Western countries have got used to predominantly very good services, and therefore you're not used to power outages. And when you have a power outage, it seems as though the world is ending, because of course the children can't play games online, and effectively the television has stopped working, which is probably the best thing that the TV could do.
Wonderful. And things will eventually start to change when it comes to the system. Yes, this is part of the this event.
Yes, we're expecting to see, this would be the start of the change, really. So there is a change that's being planned, and obviously from our perspective we are part of that change as well. So as this game of chess continues, my dear, as we said, we watch what the negative aspect is looking to do, and then of course we counteract some of those things from our perspective. So this is where we bring people online to be in the right places, to do the right things. But if you think about it, the negative aspect, or the cabal, as you could call them, need electricity. All of their banking systems, all of the finance systems that they control, all of the billionaires that exist on the planet need their digital money. So they're not going to leave things turned off for a particularly long time, because it would obviously impact them. But for a few weeks, they can float around on their yachts and have a wonderful time with all of their gadgetry that they have localized to them. But at some point, the banking system needs to come back online, because of this is where their assets are stored.
Yes. So do you believe that this is going to affect the whole world?
Yes, we expect it to have, not initially, but there will be repercussions across the world, of course.
Yes.
Because if you look at the way the whole system's been designed, the whole finance and banking system's been designed and being controlled by certain families that we know the names of, and we know the locality of the people that come from those places. So if things change dramatically, they will start to lose control of that part of the system. And then, of course, this brings online other choices. So people currently have things like Bitcoin, let's say, as a choice. It's a digital currency system that's been designed away from the more influential family names that control the banking system. Of course, it relies on electricity, it relies on computers to be up to work. But of course, some of these things, that there isn't one panacea that provides all of the answers, but there's lots of different ways that people can make changes to the way that they live for a short period of time. And that will then change. So when they talk about this reset, this is the reset that we're seeing, that they keep talking about. So the word's already going out into the general populace, and they've been going out for the last 2 or 3 years. And if you listen to the world leaders that we're talking about, they continue to talk about a reset. So reset means that you stop something and then you restart it. But of course, you don't start it in the same way that you stopped it. And this is what we're expecting to see.
That resonates a lot. Thank you very much, Chen. And it's funny that as you were explaining all of this, we've been having some issues with the feed. A lot of people's video feed was cutting out, and they've missed quite a bit of what you said. So how interesting that occurs. So some of you are going to have to watch the recording, and I think I'm going to change the subject before the censors start to get a bit more serious about what we're saying. Thank you very much, Chen. I'm going to have a chat with you on the 23rd, so next week on Astara, and we'll be able to talk about all of these things at length without any concern for censorship. So thank you for explaining all of that about November. I'm sure that this is helping a lot of people with their understanding as to what's to occur. I had a couple questions. One is in relation to a clearing I did. Can you please explain what psychic hooks are? My client had them all over her back like a porcupine, and it was placed there by a reptilian. She's wondering how they got there, and is this a very common thing to find on people?
So psychic hooks, the same really concept as cording, to be honest. So again, they're just energetic, effectively hooks in the way that you visualize them, that have been placed inside the etheric field. And of course, they have a frequency of vibration. So everything is frequency, as we know, on planet Earth. So if an entity basically places a hook into your etheric field, that hook vibrates at a certain frequency that they can connect to. So it's a bit like their signature. So basically, the same way that telepathy works, if Andrew thinks of you, my dear, then he sends you a blast of energy that comes through the ether and it hits your etheric field, and you might then immediately think, oh, I need to speak to Andrew or give Andrew a ring. So there's telepathy working quite quickly. So these hooks are the same concept as cords, really. They're just negative connections that have been placed inside the etheric, and entities use them to hop on and hop off. And of course, they can pull them. So if you can imagine in your back, if you have 6 or 7 hooks in different places, an entity can connect to the energy of that hook and pull it tight. And that may give you a pain in a certain part of your body, generally connected into the nervous system. So you might start to have headaches or start to have negative pains or negative feelings, or they can use it to extract energy. And this is what they generally do, because of course entities are looking to extract fear-based negative frequency, which is what they assimilate into themselves. So if you think about everything from a spiritual perspective, everything is about some other entity assimilating a low vibration from you into them.
Thank you for explaining that. And is it the same way of getting rid of these hooks if you suspect you have any, is like cutting cords?
Yeah, same concept. So again, you can put a thought out to myself or your own spirit guide team and ask them to clear and remove any negative hooks or cords that have been connected into the etheric. And then, of course, we will then take your request and then act and action that for you.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Let's see, I had some questions from the public. I have a couple written down. If you guys would like to ask more, feel free to drop them in the comments. Roy wanted to know about Dr. Adamo's blood group diet. He says that depending on the blood type that you have, that you are better off with a certain particular diet. You know what I'm talking about, yes?
Yes, I'm not aware of the actual physical person, but of course the concept makes complete sense. So each of you has a genetic structure, a chemical basis, and a genetic DNA. So all of you have been put together with different parts, effectively. So of course it would mean that certain people need and can assimilate meat very easily, where other people have a different type of physical chemistry and structure, and they find meat difficult to break down. So different diets obviously work for different types of people. And again, if you're black, you will have a certain genetic structure, generally a thicker bone, generally faster. This is what we tend to see, is that black people are generally much, the design and the build is much quicker and athletic compared to white.
We see that in sports. England learned that in football the other day.
So again, the same as dogs and cats, my dear, isn't it? It's the human beings. There's lots of different varieties of human being, and of course, if you take the core varieties of black, white, Chinese, tribal, there's 4 or 5 base types, and then you start to mix them over hundreds of years, then of course you get all sorts of different types of mixes. And then of course you start to see people that have problems with their skin or certain other infections, or that they're alluded to different infections or diseases based upon their chemical structure and their DNA. So of course this starts to come out in the younger generation. So the food is the same concept, depending upon the way that you've built. Not all humans are the same. This is basically the concept.
Yes. Well, our genetics has been tampered with so much, and we are so many mixes of different backgrounds. And when it comes to our genetics, we have noticed that there's some issues as well that people, like our feet, for example. If you look at Bigfoot's got a nice flat foot, and his foot doesn't have as much trouble as ours. And then you see ours, and it's got the arch to it, and we do have a lot of struggle. So is there a lot of things they kind of botched about our genetics when they were tampering with us?
I think if you went back, my dear, back in time, and you actually looked at the first version of Homo erectus, really, they were basically spliced from what you would term as your apes or your monkeys. So they were flat-footed, they were heavy-set, they were very strong, but not very intelligent, really. So that was the kind of worker class that was created. And then, of course, over the years, your genetics have been spliced by different entities and different species. And then, of course, each time that happens, the genetics gets to change. But of course, if you keep splicing and you keep splicing, eventually you break the core, really. And when you break the core, then you start to see all of these diseases coming forward. The actual physical bone structures don't work properly. So it's not the case that the continual mixing of different types of core human is good. So a bit like oil and water. Oil doesn't mix with water. You can put it in a container and you can throw it up and down as much as you can and shake it, but eventually the oil and the water separate. And this is the same with the genetic model.
Interesting. Is this also why we have so many Rh negative blood types there that are so different? And so I mean, sometimes you can't even mate the two without having some kind of an issue with the offspring. So is that another symbol of that, of two genetically distinct, different species mixing?
Yes, it would be the same as dogs and cats again mixing. If you tried to splice together, a cat embryo with a dog, generally it would be aborted. Nature would abort it basically 9 times out of 10, or maybe 90 times out of 10. But eventually you might actually get one living dog or cat that comes forward, that the splicing is good enough for it to exist. But of course it wouldn't be right at all. And this is what we have, as we have all of these different types of entities splicing in their genetics and their DNA and trying to turn on the psychic and the telepathic aspects, because telepathy is the key here. And all of you born as humans have telepathy turned on, but of course it's turned off very quickly by the system and the frequencies that come in from a rather large planet that is in your solar system.
Has this always been the case, or is it different now that the consciousness level of the planet has changed? Because if you think about how many hybrids we had back in Atlantis and ancient Greece, those sort of things, Egypt, is the conscious level different now, so we can't have those type of hybrids anymore, or is it more of a higher frequency thing?
The frequencies are coming in higher, and of course this is providing the ability for you to start to change and ascend the actual structure, and this is why people are becoming so telepathic. And it's also, of course, my dear, why so many people are hearing voices, because of course their telepathy is turned on, but they're not controlled, and therefore they hear voices, they can talk to other spirits and entities, and this is why this problem is becoming so big so quickly. And of course it's happening in every country in the world, so it's not down to a regional problem or a particular cultural problem, it's down to the whole planet effectively. So there are native tribes that also have people that are hearing voices that are struggling, and in the past you'd have called them shaman or shamanic practitioners, but some of those also are having problems and unable to control the information that's coming in.
Really? Is this due to the dark influence or just the frequency shifts?
It's the frequency shifts primarily. The dark influence is trying to hold everything down, but of course it's not working particularly well.
Yeah, I can imagine not. And not with all of this hard work we're putting in, thwarting them.
Yes, and there are lots of groups like yours here, my dear, that are doing the same thing in different ways, because there are different ways to raise vibration and raise the energy. So this is one model that you work with, and obviously this is the model that I aligned with in terms of the spirit release therapy concept modality. And the reason is, from my perspective, it's very quick. But if you look at other practitioners doing other things, they can take a lot longer to get to the same point. But the same thing is happening. They're still releasing, clearing people, helping people heal from their own spiritual evolvement and also their own experiences.
Yes. And so people are going to be able to start, this is going to be a natural state of being then, the telepathy, after in the next, say, 40 years or so, everybody will be consciously aware of their telepathy?
Yeah, so eventually you won't be able to lie to each other, because you'll know someone's lying to you. At the moment, of course, if you look at the whole world stage, everything is a lie, basically.
Yeah.
But it's only percolated because people don't know it's a lie for the most part. But if all of you become telepathic overnight and someone looks you in the eye and tells you something that's not true, you immediately know they're lying to you. And of course, that's a game changer.
Indeed. Oh, I can't wait for that. I'm already, it's going to be nice to know that more people are sensing that as well, because of the politics, especially on this planet. We have a lot of liars to deal with. Ariana had a great question. She wanted to know, are there ranks in the astral? And if so, who is at the top and who is below them? Is there an order or hierarchy?
Well, there is a hierarchy, a loose hierarchy, in the same way that your corporate organizations have a hierarchy, because you'll have to have some sort of way of moving information around up and down. And of course, you have to, in our own team that I work with, obviously I'm quite high up in the hierarchy, and there are understudies, entities that are understudies that are learning and following our process. So they would be seen to be lower ranks to myself, but we don't really rank in the same way that you would as a human. So it's more about everything is vibratory. So it's vibration that is the ranking. So if my vibration, let's say, is 10, and there's another entity that's an arachnoid that's vibration is 4, then effectively he would be underneath me because, of course, his vibration is lower. If I was talking to an angelic entity or another species that had a vibration of 15, then I would be subservient to that vibration. So the ranking is done by vibration, not by if you like, the way that you do things. You have jobs and roles, and people are given jobs and roles, and that basically transcends the structure from the organizational perspective. Our version of it in spirit is about frequency.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've read in a few ancient texts that there are actually different layers to the astral as well, lower astral dimensions and higher astral dimensions. Can you give us a little insight into both?
Yeah, so like everything, again, everything is depicted by vibratory frequency, really. So the astral is, again, just a frequency of vibration that energies use, almost like a motorway to a certain degree. But again, there are different frequencies in the astral, of course. So those that are on higher frequency, if I wanted to communicate with what we could term to be entities that were above me, then I could transcend and move up in those astral frequencies for a short time to converse and have conversations, and then of course come back down to my natural layer. And then if I wanted to talk to the darker aspects, obviously I can go down to their frequency and communicate. So nothing is set, everything is fluid, everything is possible, which is what makes it so interesting, really, from our perspective.
Do you have to do this through conscious thought when you try to lower your vibration, or do you just go and think negative things with something to lower your vibe? How do you do that? Is that a way of just doing it through conscious intention?
Well, of course, we don't have a physical body per se, so it's just conscious intention. So I would just basically think of the level or frequency I wish to be at, and then I just change my frequency to be at that layer. Of course, it only works going down. It doesn't really work going up. So negative entities can't suddenly think they'd like to be at the top of the pile and change their frequency upwards. So your frequency is bound by the lives that you've had from your perspective in terms of human beings, the lives that you've had, and the way that you ascend yourself from a spiritual perspective depicts the frequency that you can elevate to, if you like. But of course, when you're at a certain frequency, you can easily go down. So when I used to converse with the more negative side, and actually I'd speak to them through Andrew because it was so much easier for me. So I'd ask them to come in and populate the body of a client. And then obviously I would be populating Andrew's body in a positive possession. And then we would speak and communicate verbally because, of course, that was an easy way to do it. But now, obviously, the way that we tend to do it is on our side of the fence. I would just speak to an entity using telepathy, or move straight down to their frequency and effectively stand in front of them and converse.
Nice. I bet they love that.
They're not very keen generally.
You mean they're not happy to see you, Chen?
You would be surprised, my dear.
So can I ask, I wanted to know a few things about soul guides. Do you have spare time? What do you do if you do with it?
Well, of course, time doesn't really exist on our side of the fence, but we have times that we don't have to do anything particularly. So the way that you think of things is, obviously, if you were thinking of me and you were asking me to help you and do things, then the way that you understand it, you would engage my time to do that. But of course, I don't have time, so I could be conversing with you at the same time that I was conversing with Andrew, at the same time that I could be essentially sat reading a book or something. But we have intellect, obviously we're a spiritual energy and an intelligence, and obviously we have classes where we can go to learn things. And this is one of the things, my dear, that happens with the spirit release therapy practitioners. Most of the guides haven't done and don't understand this work at all because, of course, generally they need to be trained. So when the human elects to come on the training, the guides have to be connected to us and trained as well. So there are training classes. So we have the same concepts as your universities, where we have certain guides that are very predominantly good at certain things and certain guides that aren't very good at other things. And this is what you've seen, my dear, yourself. When you talk to mediums that have been trained, you noticed at the start the guides were struggling with some of the concepts that we were talking about and taking an awful long time to clear in the way that we expect them to. And over time, of course, the practice, they get much better and quicker.
Indeed, they do. And I have noticed that there are certain aspects of the clearing too. Like, for example, I would tune into a client and I would ask the client's soul guides if we have permission to do the clearing. And they said, yes, they've been waiting for you.
Yes.
And I did have the thought, well, why didn't they just clear it themselves? Because they're waiting for me to come in and do it. But now it makes sense. They didn't know how to clear it themselves, some of these soul guides.
Yes. So, I mean, again, if you look at again the incarnation of a human, you incarnate into a physical body. At that point, you bring in guides. Those guides are preset, pre-chosen by you, basically, before you become a human being. So those guides are there basically to take you on your transitory journey and help you understand and live your life. And they're there for the traumas that you're going to go through and the things that are difficult in your life. But it doesn't make them experts in connecting with extraterrestrial species that are negative and clearing and removing them. And some of these guys don't wish to do that work. So they elect to step aside when that work happens. And then you attract, as a physical person, a higher level energy to do that work.
So let's say, for example, that there is a person that's been taken over by a reptilian, for example, and the soul guide is not equipped to remove this entity. And they get pushed out, don't they? They get pushed away from their own ward. So what do? Then they come looking for the team to come and get our attention. It's like they go looking for help from other guides.
Well, yes. So basically, when you're talking about possession, effectively,
Yeah.
so a physical human being does something or does drugs or substance or something, and then ends up with some type of entity. You do give the reptilians a bad name, I have to say, my dear.
Sorry, they're always at the top of my list when it comes to.
There are good ones. We do work with good ones, but let's say a negative reptilian takes over or possesses the physical body, basically. Then, of course, the soul guide connection is disconnected. So the soul guide at that point steps backwards because, of course, the physical human has made an agreement with another entity to allow it to use or control its body. So there has been generally a contractual agreement that's been made, generally when someone's been hallucinating or taking drugs or something. So that has been an elected free will choice by the human at that point. So the soul guide has to step back. But what the soul guide will then do, from our perspective, is raise the flag. So now that human has effectively a flag raised that there is a possession that's happened, but it was an agreed possession. And then effectively we don't do anything. We just sit and watch until either that human asks for help, in which case the soul guide would raise the flag to us, or of course in the way that we work, someone generally in the family will book that person an appointment, a spirit release therapy session where we will try and then intervene. So there will be an intervention that's happening on their behalf, even though they may not have actually requested it themselves.
So for example, if there's a certain practitioner of SRT that is looking for more clientele for, I don't know, let's just say a certain type of entity, like those hybrids we've been noticing, is there a way to actually call you? Is it to be mindful of calling more of that to you? Because in a way, it's like when you are ready to handle that situation, the universe is like, well, here you go. Here's all the work you were wanting. Is that kind of how it works?
Yes, effectively you attract it, of course. So if we look at young Andrew, he was a very foolish man some time ago, and he decided he was very interested in talking to demonic entities, which of course isn't really advisable for most people, because he used to read about it and think about it. Then, of course, he used to attract it. And then when he attracted it, he didn't really know what to do about it. And that caused quite a few problems back in the day.
I imagine so. Well, I mean, once your gifts get turned on, you kind of want to talk to everybody, don't you?
Yes, and of course, if you're on the path, if you're here to work and clear negativity, which people attracted to these sorts of groups, because this is the core part of your communication and part of the dictate that we're talking about. If you're attracted into these places, then it's probably part of your path to be doing that. People that are afraid of the darkness would turn up at your website, my dear, and they would run away quite quickly, I would assume.
That's good to know. That makes sense. And it explains why we have so many repeat cases of similar, activity.
Yes. And of course, things don't always work. So from our perspective, It's not magic, particularly. We have protocol that we use and a way that's been obviously set up and orchestrated over a long, long time by obviously Andrew and Dr. Palmer and Terence, who stood right next to me here. But obviously, it's not perfect, and everything is adapting and changing. The frequencies are changing, and the negative side is continually changing. So we have to adapt and change in the same way. And this is what you're seeing now with this AI. Suddenly, no one knew the word AI probably a year ago, I would assume. But if you spoke to most people now across the world in different countries, everyone would say, oh, yes, we've heard of AI. We're not quite sure exactly what it is or how it works, but we know the wording. So AI seems to have been basically publicly disseminated all across the world at the same time. And you have to wonder why that would happen.
Yes. No such thing as coincidence.
No, of course.
So I'm just curious, all of the things that are happening right now, are they going to start intensifying even more over the next coming weeks?
Yes, it's going to be an interesting time to be on planet Earth. So for the remainder of the year, things are going to become interesting from my perspective.
Thank
And interesting in a good way. So not just everything, again, humans tend to look at the negative aspects of things. There's lots of positive change happening. And obviously the events that happened last week in your particular state will have repercussions and a knock-on. And some of those knock-ons will be positive.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for this, Chen. Did you say just a moment ago that Terry is with you?
Yes, of course.
Would he like to deliver a message or anything? Have anything he'd like to share?
Yes, Terence tends to say, just get on with it very often.
Is that still the theme we're working? Yes. Get on with it.
Terence doesn't have a lot of patience. He didn't have a lot of patience when he was physically human, and he doesn't have a lot still back in spirit, because of course he tried to build this organization, this whole concept. He tried to build it himself single-handedly, and it didn't really work particularly well, because of course one person can't build what's required. So now that he's on this side of the fence, obviously he's orchestrating things behind the scenes, but of course everything's happening in slow Earth time, because you all have jobs, you all have things to do, everyone has their roles and responsibilities. So from Mr. Palmer's perspective, everything is taking too long, because of course he's also watching the negative aspect coming in quite quickly. And when you know that you can resolve problems very fast, you want to have the right people in the right places resolving the problems. And obviously it's like everything. If you can imagine a petri dish, my dear, where you put a bit of bacteria on, and you see that bacteria start to grow and spread, and then you know that, of course, if you drop some disinfectant on, of course it kills the virus really quickly, and you have the disinfectant, you want to be dropping it all over that petri dish. But if there's only one drop happening at the time, that bacteria is still growing quite quickly, and that's what Mr. Palmer is seeing, is that the negative aspect is doing what it does. And this work, as you know, you've seen yourself, works. It's probably the only thing that does work to actually massively change and reduce the negative vibration on planet Earth. And this is why it's so important.
It almost feels like we're a bucket brigade on the Titanic, trying to get the water out of the boat. It's just not, yeah, it's a lot of work to do, but we're happy to do it.
I think that's a good analogy, my dear, except I would say you're probably the teaspoon brigade at the moment.
The teaspoon brigade.
We'll be happy. When you get to buckets, we'll be very happy.
Oh, thank you for that. And Chrissy just wanted to say, she says, this is going to be on a global scale. So it's not just America that is going to be affected. A lot of us have been focusing on what's happening with American politics, but this isn't just an American thing. This is a global cabal issue, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Obviously, different things will happen in different countries at different times on that timeline. But yes, the events that we're foreseeing will be happening everywhere.
Wonderful. Thank you. And can I just ask really quick that if there's anybody that would like a healing, that they could ask the team now for some healing today?
Yes, of course. My team will be more than happy to send that energy and that vibration out to anyone that would like to receive.
So you hear that, guys? Please do, if you would like some healing from Chen's team today, just express it out loud and they will send you some healing for today. Thank you very much for that, because as you see, it helps us. We keep our vibration high. We keep that frequency going everywhere we go. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, and it's important to keep the mindset is the key, really. So the mindset and the vibration is your key attribute. Everything else doesn't matter. Your looks don't matter. The warts on your face don't matter. The clothing you choose to have doesn't matter. None of that makes any difference at all. It's the thought process and your intention that is the key in your life.
Thank you very much, Chen. Thank you so much for everything that you do for this community. We are so grateful.
Yeah, of course, my dear. And I enjoy it immensely.
And much love to Dr. Palmer as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Palmer, for everything you've also done for us. We are doing our best to make you proud.
Yes, Dr. Palmer would obviously like to convey his thanks. And even though he might seem to be slightly inhospitable, I think he said at times, obviously he's very grateful to the work that's happening, because it is happening and change is being made. And that was the proponent of his whole life path.
Wonderful. Yes, it was indeed. Thank you very much, Chen. I look forward to our chat on the 23rd. In fact, we're going to chat more about the cabal, and we'll be able to do it in private on the censorship-free area. So I'm very grateful that we can have that conversation.
Yes, perfect. So I think we need to have a platform and a stage. So from our perspective, we thank obviously all of you that put that together to provide a place that we can talk about things in an open and honest environment that isn't fearful and frightening to people, but we can actually get down to the nitty gritty, which, as you know, my dear, I then tend not to shy away from.
That is my favorite. You know me. I'll get all the nitty gritty out of here. Yeah. Thank you, Chen. We love you very much. And we're thankful for the healing you're receiving from the team as well today. And yes, we're just very grateful for you and the team. Thank you.
Okay, well, say my good day, my dear, and we will catch you next week.
See you next week. Hello. Your face. How are you feeling?
All right.
Yeah, your neck a bit stiff.
I think I'm getting old, Laura, basically. That's what's happening. You need to be a fish.
I was going to say, that's why Chen's like, hey, Ollie, how you doing?
Yeah. And I did say that to Ollie a while back. He said, no, not me. No.
Well, you know, he's got some time to ease into it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, if it's on your path, it's on your path, isn't it? So, you know, as we both know, you can't sidestep some things as much as you might try.
Well, you know, this is all part of the dance. That's what we're doing on this planet. We're just dancing all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just wake up with a list of things to do and just think, let's just run through them. Just have a laugh, have a chat. And, you know, there's the sort of physical part of your life to kind of enjoy. And then there's the worky part that we need to just keep moving that, as Johnny says, keep moving the ship forward, basically.
You know what they say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. This isn't work for me. I thoroughly enjoy this. It's the highlight of my day when I can work.
Yeah, I know when I wake up in the morning, I never think, oh, another day. I always think, I wonder what's coming today.
I'm so grateful for the fact that we have new students that I can work with as well. We got them all different time zones too. So I was up doing clearings till 1 a.m. the other day.
Oh,
yeah, it's good enough. I love it.
Yeah,
I was working with Leia on the East Coast, so I'm on the West Coast, so I can, you know, do clearings all the time now, and I just love it. It's great.
And I think that was kind of Terry's intention, was that we create these disparate groups of people all over the world, so someone's available all of the time. Basically, that kind of is the goal, I guess.
Indeed. And we're also going to be doing this Lost Soul Rescue on Astara as well, which Andy has agreed to take one of the, basically what the plan is we are going to be offering Lost Soul Rescue groups on Astara. It's going to be open for trained mediums. This is for SRT trained mediums and mediums who are trained in protection and that sort of thing. So if you have taken one of Jono's gatekeeper or protection classes, or one of Andy's protection classes or mediumship classes, then you know the basics of how to validate your guides and to lock down your etheric and to protect yourself. And those are the important things to really know before you get involved in this, because even though we'll be rescuing earthbounds and clearing spaces, we're still kind of poking the dark side in a way.
Poking?
Yes, you're poking them.
Like a hornet's nest, basically, yeah.
They did warn me. They said it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that you're going to do, Laura, but just do it very carefully. and to make sure that everybody is well trained when they're getting involved. So for those of you who would like to get involved in SRT, but you're just kind of wanting to get your toes wet without jumping fully in just yet, this will be a great opportunity for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things is on my list with John, actually, because obviously he does the gatekeeper class, which I think is coming this weekend. So
that's right. It is coming up this weekend, is it? Well, Lord Webster's on the call now. Hello. Let's get his link as well. We can promote the Jono. Here we go.
I don't think he's a Lord.
If you're interested in doing the Lost Soul Rescue, this is definitely something that you need. We are also going to be training facilitators for it, for people doing Lost Soul Rescue. So it's kind of like I said, getting your feet wet for SRT to see if this is.
I think that's what John and I were talking about, was having some small, quick kind of courses that we can run that do go over protection. And so if someone can start off by kind of just getting their feet wet rather than coming straight into SRT, you can kind of do, a gradual process of a few courses to get used to protection and some of the ways we do things and talk about things. And I mean, the SRT class, as you know, is kind of like you kind of go from 0 to 150 in 5 days.
Yeah, no joke.
And it's quite intense, really, but obviously enjoyably intense. Whereas we're sort of thinking about
people like me who is, I can't get enough excitement in my life. You know what I mean? Like this stuff, I'm definitely, it was funny. I was talking to one of the soul guides the other day and I was chatting about mentioning that I was a firefighter back in the day. And they said, oh, this is the perfect time for you. This is the firefighter era.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because I kind of have the mentality of just rushing into the fire. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of that type of person. See danger, I run towards it. I don't run away from it. So if you are one of those people, this SRT might be perfect for you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we're trying to change. We're trying to get to the point that everything is with more people, as you know now. We've got more people, more facilitators, more mediums. So we've got different types of personalities, different types of people. So there's lots of offshoots of things starting to happen there in SRA, which is great because obviously we want different people to do different things. We want to teach children. We want to teach teenagers. We want to kind of, start to connect with the younger audience because obviously I'm old. You're not as old as me, but you're older than like 16,
I'm
17.
Still in my 30s. Thank you very much. I may only have 7 months left, but I am enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah, you enjoy it. Yeah. So we're quite keen to sort of have like a version of Lara that's kind of 18 or 17 that can connect to that audience and start to get the work out to that sort of space and kind of lots of people on this call, I'm sure, have got children that they understand the concept of protection and where we are and what's happening, but we need to sort of start to
train the next generation.
Yeah, because obviously we're kind of all we're all kind of.
I was already told by one of my guides that's why Aiden is here. He's my little reinforcement.
And that's the thing, if you think, if there was like 500 people in SRA, effectively, with, 2 children each, there's 1,000 children that kind of come up with parents that have the understanding of what we're doing and why we do it and training them. And then they talk to their friends at school. And, the change can be very small, but quite rapid in terms of like energy, really.
Yes, exactly. See, lovely comment that Louisa just missed. Hi, Louisa. She says, I'm well up on the protection stuff, but would like to get involved with some shorter courses and groups, potentially as a facilitator. Some pre-training would be nice, but I know you guys need to make a living yourselves. Yeah, we're going to keep it very affordable, our training, because like you said, we're paying it forward as well. And I really do believe that the facilitator role changes too, the way that you because like I said, you may start as a facilitator, but I've noticed I'm becoming a medium rather quickly. It's funny how much you pick up when you start doing cases, when you start tuning into the clients yourselves. I didn't even notice I was doing it. I would just say the name of the client and then I would feel different. Yeah, that really shocked me.
Of course, it's all energy, isn't it? So we're connecting to each other. And, one of the things that we see on that course, certainly the in-person course, you put 20 people in a room together that don't know each other. And within a day, everyone's like best of friends. And by day 2, all of the personal stuff's coming out and clearing. And by day 4, the light is on, the eyes are different, everyone's talking at a different level. It's astronomical, really, in what you can achieve in such a short time.
Especially in the in-person training, just being able to sit together and chat and be able to just, Yeah, we've got a lot of wonderful things I imagine we're going to be doing together with the new students that are signing up for the training.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share the link for that really quick. Here we go. The SRT. We have, let's see. Is the online registration still open or no?
Yeah, no, we're still taking that basically.
I was going to say somebody messaged me yesterday and said they signed up.
Yeah, so what we were doing was just trying to get people's names and numbers to start with. Then we thought, if there's enough people, which it looks like there definitely is, then obviously we can then start to move into, right, we've got a couple of months to start planning to work out how to get from the UK across to the USA or on a plane somewhere with all of the stuff that we're going to need in terms of portfolios and pens and all the other stuff. So the planning process is kind of starting, as you know, tomorrow, because we're talking tomorrow. So, so anyone that's interested in joining us on that in-person course, we're looking at the kind of Ithaca area for a week in November. And like you say, the waiting list is what we're kind of taking from that form that you've just posted, which is great.
Wonderful. How exciting.
It will be exciting, actually. It'll be exciting for us to actually do it somewhere else, because obviously John and I have both, run the course twice now in the UK, which is quite close to us, but we haven't run it in a kind of more remote location. And the idea being, of course, that this is this kind of whole process where we start to train other trainers as well. Then we can kind of mirror that into other countries, and different groups of SRA trained practitioners can be running the training in different countries around the world, which will be, it's kind of like a blue sky type thinking, but that's where we're looking to kind of get to over time.
And I feel like this work is going to be becoming more and more important as the shift gets stronger, because people are going to be seeing these more. They're going to be seeing the need for these more. And they're also going to be feeling it too. People are also sensing all of these. So yeah, this work is never going to end. There's going to be, we're never going to run out of clients, I don't think.
Well, I think it's like the Ghostbusters film, when they call them in and they come racing down the road in the car and they all jump out with the backpacks and they go, "Where's the ghosty?" sort of thing. They rush into the buildings. I think that kind of concept is where we sort of see ourselves from an astral perspective, because obviously, we're being called to some of the most difficult clients in the world, people that are suicidal, that have entities and voices, and medicine and science isn't able to tackle that really. So it has to be tackled spiritually, and there aren't that many groups, and I don't know of any other organizations like ours that are actually training people to do this. So from our perspective, mine and John's, this is a one-off at the moment, and I guess there'll be kind of other people that will spring up the same sorts of things behind the scenes in different countries, in different languages at some point. But we sort of feel like we as a group are sort of leading the way really. And that was the intention, was to kind of be the best at what we do. Which,
could you imagine us rocking up in an ambulance to like a hospital, going showing up like, "There's demons in here."
Well, I think Stacey found that, didn't she? Didn't Stacey post the actual Ghostbuster ambulance on one of our chats?
That's what I was thinking about. That's why I was giggling. Yeah. It fits, to be honest, considering what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and obviously, like we need, like you said, we need the next gen, don't we? Because we're all, if we're going to be doing this for another, I don't know, X amount of years, I don't see myself.
I totally see this getting more advanced too. Like, one of the questions I planned to ask, but I forgot, actually, was about frequencies, because there's certain frequencies that if you emit it, it will actually detach the entity from the person it's connected to. So could you imagine just like walking up to somebody and then blasting them with like a sound device, like, why not?
Well, I think that's the thing. I think sound is going to be the next gen of healing tool spiritually.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not, it's not a big surprise to me. We've got like Andy Ross and Matt, basically both sound engineers that have joined SRA. So already we're attracting sound people that work with Broadway and they orchestrate music and understand sound. So my kind of thought is that at some point we need to make a sound-based device that does this stuff as well as anything else, really. So it's
stage bubbles at the same time. Sound and stage.
Sound and stage. SNS. It's a different type of SS.
Yes, exactly. We need a nice little startup here for a new little. It's funny. I actually did have a dream where I was running around with like this smudge wand. It was like an electric smudge wand, where like you get like these electric little
taser.
Yeah. So it was like, you know, you don't have to keep lighting it. You just click a button and sage smoke just comes like a fan just out of the end of the tip. You just start running around with it. We can get really clever with this.
Yeah, because you think if you incorporate crystal technology, so crystals vibrate at different frequencies and stuff. So if you incorporated crystals with sound type device covering different frequencies and harmonics, then I'm sure we can find the frequency that entities don't like to push them back or push them away. And then you can have buildings, couldn't you, with those sorts of devices around the doors and windows that stop all of that shit stuff coming in, basically.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a startup idea right there, Lara.
I know, I want one because, like I tell you, that thing was so cool. It was basically like a lightsaber, but it emitted sage instead of light, like this, like the smoke. Yeah, so it was like, yeah, it was a really cool little contraption, and I wanted one when I woke up. I was like, damn, is that not a thing?
Well, and that's kind of the same concept as zappers. Obviously, these zappers that we use, we use them to clear parasites, bacteria, and viruses from your blood. The same thing to kind of put around buildings to keep negative stuff away. I'm sure there must be loads of sci-fi films that exist that have some sort of frequency generator that keeps the negative stuff on the other side of it, type thing. So I'm sure we've probably already been seeded with the idea, just that no one yet has actually made or orchestrated a kind of box that does it. So if anyone's listening that is...
I was going to say, we need some clever people to help us make these things.
We need like an electrical engineer. We've got the sound guys, haven't we? We've probably got...
Yeah, we do.
So we could spring up a team to start to do that.
I would love it. And I bet you Chen would love it too, you know, just to walk around in public. People won't even know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there for a moment. Hang on. You know, like
exactly.
Feel anything different?
Same sort of concept was like tattoos, isn't it? Like you've got your tattoo Triskelion, you know, but then you're using the symbology to create vibration that creates a frequency. And, you know, I'm sure if you covered your whole body from head to foot in some type of protective pentagram or something, well, you might look a bit odd and you spend a lot of money, but you'd be pretty protected.
Oh, that'd be really funny. My mom flipped out about my little Triskelion tattoo. I can only imagine if I told her I was going to get head to toe, what do you call it? Protection tattoos. No. Oh, that's so funny. So, yeah, we've been chatting about 90 minutes. There's 111 people watching right now. That's funny.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So I shared the links for you guys. If you are interested, we're still taking students for the online portion, or you can join us in person this October in New York for this wonderful in-person training. And like I said, we're also going to be doing a whole lot of wonderful things with Lost Soul Rescue and different protection classes. And don't forget, we also have Mr. Webster's training this weekend. Where is it? I'm going to say
Lord Webster, please.
Lord Webster, that's right. He's there we go. There's the link for Jono's workshop this weekend. There's going to be a brilliant gatekeeper meditation on there as well, and training to connect with your soul guides. So for those of you who would like to get involved in SRT or even just the Lost Soul Rescue, like I said, we are going to be training mediums and facilitators for that as well. So lots of wonderful, exciting things in the works.
I think there is. Every time we talk, there just becomes more and more things that we can do. It is kind of, and that's what gets us out of bed, isn't it? It's the concept that we're building something that's new and new age, as in world leading, in a completely different way, but with the right intention and stuff. And that's the thing.
You out of bed. I thought it would be Dr. Palmer with the whip in the morning. No,
no, I get that in the ear generally. Not all he ever says is "get on with it." That's his like statement. Just get on with it. Get on with it. You think, yeah, get on with it, but there's lots of things to get on with. So they all take time, don't they, to kind of line these dominoes up, really.
You can't just snap our fingers and manifest it like it works in the astral down here, unfortunately.
No, and I think that's the thing as well, you know, from a kind of like serious perspective. When Terry was here, and obviously I've been working with him for like 10 years, we would never have got to the point that John and I have got to with this now, because Terry wouldn't really have allowed us to go into some of the areas that we've been able to, because the level of control's not really been the same, and our kind of dictate has been different. It's a bit like the way that we had some fun at Olympia, and I think if Jono might have been there, you might not have been running around with a bubble gun, sage, and a Ghostbusters outfit, if we remember.
I don't know if he had been there the first day and was as bored as we were the first day. He might have actually given us the green light. We were crawling up the walls with boredom the first day, but the last 3 days they went so fast, didn't they?
Yeah, it was fun. I was absolutely knackered by the time I came home.
Yeah, exactly.
And very wet and bubbly. My hands were ever so soft from all those like bubbly stuff that we've been playing with.
Imagine when they go to clean that carpet, how many bubbles are going to be all over the Olympia. That sage is going to be spread more over the Olympia.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. Can't wait for the next one. You guys did book the table for Olympia next year, yeah?
Yeah, it's booked for next year, booked and paid for it. Yeah, we've done that.
Everybody around us were like, "You're coming back, right? You're going to get the same table, right?" Like, yes, we'll come back. Same spot.
Yeah, we need to have a little kind of like soundbite think about how we're going to kind of do stuff, I suppose, in a different way.
Different way, huh?
Well, just...
We're going to dress Jono up next time. And we'll dress Jono up as like a demon and we'll chase him around.
Yeah, what we could do is the demon and hang him from the rafters upside down for the day. And sage him, maybe. Yeah, something like that. That'd be cool.
I love it. I could chit chat with you all day, Andy, but I know you're a very busy man. So thank you for everybody for joining us today. This has been a really fun chat. Jono says, "What the fuck?"
He likes the idea of being hung upside down like a bat, basically. Yeah, I think the same happened to me, John. If you remember when I came back and said I wasn't keen to put on the Ghostbuster outfit, I think you explained that I either could put it on voluntarily or it might be forced, and I decided I perhaps...
That's what Chen said, wasn't it? Chen said you had the choice or not the choice.
I had no choice in reality, no.
Oh, what a fun week that was.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Andy. Always a pleasure. And thank you to Chen and for Dr. Palmer for joining us as well today. And thank you to everybody that has also joined us. We'll have another chat with Andy on the 23rd on Astara, and that one will be completely uncensored. So it'll be nice.
We can say real words and real things. Well, when I say we.
Yay! Looking forward to it. And that one will be about the Cabal. I have permission to talk about the Cabal. I'm very excited about that. I have a lot of questions for Chen about that.
No, that'll be interesting.
Exactly. Can't wait. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye.